I pay my respects to the Kaurna and Permanyank people, the traditional owners of the land on which I live and learn, and pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging. I recognise and respect their cultural heritage, beliefs and relationship to the land. These leaves are from the stringy bark trees of the Adelaide Hills where I live, and they hold significance for the Kaurna and Permanyank people as they mark the boundary between Kaurna and Permanyank land. Growing up in Adelaide, I saw Indigenous people living in the city parklands. The behaviours didn't make sense to my family, who avoided our First Nations people. My family perspectives were that Indigenous people were lazy, wasteful, and struggled with drugs and alcohol. It was likely my parents' attitudes were affected by the White Australia policy. Whilst this policy's aim was to minimise non-British immigration, it also disregarded Indigenous Australians, who were considered to be a dying race promoting a white Australia. National Museum Australia 2020. However, these family attitudes were cast aside if the Indigenous person was a successful sportsperson, such as Cathy Freeman or Nikki Wingard. Tats, cited in Shepherd, Wynne and Willis 2019, found that Indigenous people use sport as a means of accessing the white person's world and gaining respect. However, through sports, Indigenous people have experienced significant racism, including segregation, denial of access to clubs and abuse. Tats and Adair 2009. I was educated in the 1980s and 90s during the silent apartheid. During this time, educators often had minimal knowledge of Indigenous culture, avoiding teaching Indigenous content or doing so inappropriately. Rose 2015. The truth about Indigenous people and their history was largely ignored. Colonisation meant James Cook heroically and peacefully discovering Australia. But this concept of discovery is a falsehood given Indigenous people had been living here already for thousands of years. Harrison 2011. I know I still have so much to learn about Indigenous people and need to be aware of the impact any prejudices could have on my teaching and relationships. I need to acknowledge and incorporate family and community links, fully support students to develop a positive self-identity, accept cultural differences and contribute to the cessation of institutional racism. Jorgensen, Sullivan and Grutenberg, 2012. I also must disregard stereotypes to accept each student individually, not assuming any persuasion such as a love of sport. Human Rights and Equal Opportunity Commission 2006. Let's look now at some significant contributions made by Indigenous people of Kaurna and Permanyank country. Major Moogie Sumner is a proud Ngarrindjeri man and his contributions have had a strong impact on Kaurna and Permanyank country. We've been able to share in his performances at festivals, at events and community celebrations. We've been able to share in his passionate artwork, including the crafting of a bark canoe. Ngarrindjeri Regional Authority 2017. Major Sumner also tried to enact change at a political level, joining the Greens Party for the Australian Senate and the Adelaide Hills seat of Mayo. Major Sumner believes that reconciliation starts with telling the truth about what happened to Aboriginal people historically. Major Moogie Sumner 2019. My son Darcy enjoys a personal connection with Kaurna elder Tamaru Kutanyeri, who worked with his kindy to build their staff's cultural competence, to build the children's understanding of Kaurna culture and language, and to co-construct their Reconciliation Action Plan, which is a set of guidelines for organisations to promote the movement towards reconciliation. Reconciliation Australia 2020. Tamaru believes he is shaping children's beliefs and attitudes about Aboriginal people and hopes the children will share their positive stories with others. These contributions, along with my learning so far, these unit learnings so far, have inspired me to want to include Indigenous perspectives in my teaching. Firstly, Indigenous culture is a critical part of Australia's history, present and future, and there needs to be better educational outcomes for Indigenous students. Ministerial Council on Education, Employment, Training and Youth Affairs 2008. Chris Sarra, TEDx Talks 2010, finds that teachers are crucial in helping achieve these outcomes and can do so by encouraging Indigenous students to follow their dreams. The work by Tamaru Kutanyeri to build relationships inspires me to want to be actively involved in the path to reconciliation. As a teacher, I can encourage a school-wide approach to reconciliation through the development of a Reconciliation Action Plan. This will support all students to develop a deeper understanding of Indigenous culture, history and language. Reconciliation Australia, ND. Many Indigenous children have been denied the opportunity to see and hear their stories in the classroom. The Aboriginal Pedagogy Framework encourages narrative-driven learning, connecting through the stories we share. New South Wales Department of Education, ND. As a teacher, I will help students to see and hear authentic stories by and about Indigenous people which reject stereotypes and encourage inclusion. Price 2015. Indigenous families have lacked an ability to play a central role in their children's education. To overcome this, I would incorporate family and community in the development of curriculum and learning. Jorgensen, Sullivan and Gutenberg, 2012. This incorporation of family and sharing of authentic stories enables Indigenous students to authentically learn and understand their culture, developing their personal identity. Williams, Mosley, 2012. However, schools must create a welcoming environment for those parents. Higgins and Morley, 2004. Non-Indigenous students have been denied the opportunity to know the truth about our Indigenous history, culture and language. By exploring this truth together, we can confront the extent of the damage non-Indigenous people have caused, so we can work through Australia's collective guilt and shame and move towards reconciliation. Madison, 2011. Thank you.